Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a virtual lunch and learn being offered by Water with Blessings in conjunction with the Louisville Water Company. And we're very excited to be welcoming Barbara Crow, who is the Community Engagement Specialist. Is that correct, Barbara?
You know what? I've had so many titles, but we can go with that one.
All right. And I met Barbara years ago when she was especially communicating and engaging with the community. I think over in Middletown, over at the Middletown Hall. So
Yep.
I've always remembered your presentation, Barbara. And I was thrilled to find out that we could get you on this lunch and learn and hear all about the beginnings of the Louisville Water Company, because it just has so much to do with what we do. Barbara was telling me earlier that she is a Louisville native from over on the South End, and worked with the Louisville Water Company for how many years?
35 years.
35
I officially
years.
retired in 2008, but left only for a few months and came back. They call me the retiree they can't get rid of. One day they'll lock the doors and I won't come back in, but I hope that's not for a long time.
Well, they shouldn't be doing that because you do an excellent job. And we've been hearing as we waited to get started about all the plans for the future. You want to tell us a little bit about that, about the reopening of the historic?
Sure. For those of you who don't know, if you go to the historic property, and that's part of my presentation too, but the water tower and pumping station, the big, beautiful white buildings down at Zorn Avenue and River Road, we've been doing some renovations there. Anybody that has an old house knows that when you have a historic facility, those things take time. But we're going to have a grand opening in January, and we'll have several smaller events and invite everybody in. But it's a beautiful museum space. It's a beautiful renovation space, and it's a beautiful part of Louisville's history. So we're excited to have that back, and hopefully you guys can come visit and we can do an in-person tour and show off those facilities.
We will definitely plan on that. We feel so much connection with the Louisville Water Company, not just because we're enjoying the delicious water of the Louisville Water Company every day. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure, but also because of our shared interest, in a sense, in waterborne disease. And we'll hear about how that is part of the story of Water with the Louisville Water Company. And also, over the years, we have received some very generous funding for various projects from the Louisville Water Foundation, and that's really all connected there. So it's a beautiful connection, and we look forward to doing some more collaboration with you. So with that, I know you have a really exciting presentation, and I'm just going to go to slides here. And hold on just a moment. I'm going to bring you up, Barbara, as the spotlight, and go to your slides, and we'll be ready here. And there we go.
Oh, I see it. And you guys, your timing is perfect because it says 160 years of quality, innovation, and value. But actually, October is our anniversary, and it's actually our 163rd anniversary. So we have a really proud history. We love that people are interested in it. But I think the thing we're most proud of is we have a tradition that is very science-based. So we can go flip to that next slide. It's really hard to believe, and I know you all deal with this every day, that we still have basic needs that people don't have. I mean, to not have shelter, food, but water is that basic building block for everything. And when you don't have that, that's crazy. At times, you guys might feel like I'm talking to fourth graders because I like to do a little interaction here so you guys hop in and answer my questions. But usually when I speak to people, I say, what do you think the main job of a water company is? What do you think our job is? Anybody out there? I don't know if you have to pop your mic off. What would you say? I'm looking at Debbie because you're right in my screen. What do you think the main job of a water company is, Debbie?
Well, obviously to provide drinking water.
All right. To supply drinking water. Anybody else?
Clean the water.
Yep, clean the water. A big part of our job is to clean that water every day. But I tell you what people forget. You guys aren't knocking on our door every day with a bucket going, Miss Crow, I'd like to flush my toilet today. Could I have water? We clean that water, make sure it's fit to drink, and you can do a million other things with it. But people forget that a big part of what we do is delivery. You guys, again, aren't knocking on our door, and we have a giant delivery system. I was in a school the other day and I said, how do we get water to you? First, I'm going to let you guys answer that question. How do we get water to you? It's as easy as what you're thinking. How do we deliver water to you every day?
Water buffalo.
No. When you turn on your water from that faucet and you take a shower, where does that come from?
Because
It
of
comes
water
from
pressure.
water pipes. Don't
Water-
feel bad, because I spoke the other day and I said, where do you get, how do we deliver water to you? And I actually had a kid say, well, Amazon, Miss Crow. And I was like, no, not Amazon. And the kid next to him elbowed him and he said, it's FedEx. But it's a water delivery system. We have a giant super highway underneath the ground that people don't ever see. And there's over 4,200 miles of pipe beneath there. And a big part of having high quality water is maintaining that super highway, that network of pipes. So who knows where we get all that water? Anybody?
River.
Yes,
River.
it is the river. And you would be surprised how many adults don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
We have a lot of adults when I do this presentation, and I say, where do you get all this water that we deliver every day? Because we deliver about 130 million gallons of water to about 1 million people every day in Louisville, Jefferson County, and the surrounding counties. But do you know what the number one answer I get with adults? The kids are doing better because we've had an education program for about 25 years. I kid you not, I still have people that say the ocean. The nearest ocean is about 10 hours away. So if you don't remember anything else we talk about, I want people to remember what an amazing source the Ohio River is. It's 981 miles long, goes in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Cairo, Illinois. And even though in Louisville, we're taking about 130 million gallons out a day, cleaning it, delivering it to customers, we have, and this is an astounding number, especially people who live in an area where they don't have water, 70 to 90 billion gallons of water flow past our city in that river every day. So what does that mean? That means we are water rich. We truly are blessed to have all that water. All right, now you're going to think I'm crazy when I ask you this. Tell me some ways you use water. Here's my prop, my Louisville Pure Tap bottle.
Drink.
We drink with it. We cook with it. We clean with it. And when I do this presentation with kids, they give me those answers. They say, oh, you flush toilets. And then they all laugh. We wash our hands. We wash our cars. We go swimming. But what people don't think is all of the material things we have and the water aspect of producing all that. Every stitch of clothing we have on, every car you're driving, every building you're in. If you didn't have that good, clean water source, you couldn't do all those things either. All right, you want to pop to the next slide. So, we talked about ways people use water and how dependent we are. But one thing people don't think about is, what if every bit of that water you had to go get? What if it wasn't delivered to you? Think about bathing. Think about drinking water. Anybody want to throw an answer out at how people got water before there was a water company? And we've been around since 1860. Any shout outs? If not, I'll shout out myself.
Well,
One of the ways people got water. Yes, wells. If you had lived on a farm or in a rural area, you guys may have all called the farming families from nearby and you'd have built a well. That's underground water source. You'd put rocks around it and you'd put up that little house. And Judy, you might have heard your name 10 times a day. Judy, the bean plants are dying. Judy, the cows need water. Judy, we got to wash up before supper. And Judy would have to make that trek down to the well to get water. Now, if you were a city kid, if you lived in downtown Louisville, they had these old things called corner pumps. And those corner pumps, and it was kind of like a social setting too. Everybody'd roll out of bed and go chat at the corner pump and they'd get their water down there. That was also underground water. Or you might have had somebody like Debbie that had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and walk 3 miles through 2 feet of snow to get water from a river or a lake or a pond or a stream, a surface water supply like the river. People also had rain barrels. They would collect that rain or they collect that snow. And that was kind of an additional source because it doesn't always rain or snow. So that's how they got water. And then I always like to say, then you got to talk about the dark side. Dun, dun, dun. What kind of bathroom facilities did they have?
My first pastorate had a cistern.
You know what? A lot, some people out there still have cisterns for drinking water, but for their wastewater, that was a different question. And here's the picture I want you to paint. What I've told you is most of the drinking water before 1860 in the city of Louisville came from underneath the ground. And guess what we were doing with our human waste? We had outhouses that were basically holes in the ground where we dumped all of our human waste. We had chamber pots. Imagine it's 95 degrees out in August and everybody's flinging their human waste out into the street, and that eventually makes its way to that underground system. Well, what do you think happened to those people that drank that water? They died. We had giant outbreaks of cholera. And when I do this presentation with kids, they're like, Miss Crow, if I was drinking the stuff in the water that normally got flushed, I wouldn't drink it. And what I tell people is, as abundantly lucky we are to have the Ohio River and that supply, the underground water systems in our area are just as vast. So what happened to all that disgusting waste was it got diluted. So people didn't see it. They didn't smell it. They didn't taste it. They kept right on drinking that water, and they kept right on getting sick and dying. And most of the time it was from cholera. And the big thing was there was a science disconnect. We even had, well before 1860, we had people in the community that got together and said, hey, we want to build a waterworks. Well, they were the laughing stock of the community. People were like, pay for water? I can send Judy down to the well. I can send Debbie down to the river. Water is free. It'd be like me telling you all I was going to start the BCrow Air Company, and you'd never had to pay for air, and now you got to pay me. People thought that was ridiculous. But the problem was there was a science disconnect. They couldn't see the stuff in the water. They couldn't taste it. They couldn't smell it. What finally got the Louisville Water Company built wasn't anything to do with health concerns. There was a giant fire in downtown Louisville, and a lot of the shop owners lost their businesses. And they were the ones that finally clamored together and said, hey, we want a waterworks. So in 1860, the Louisville Water Company first started pumping water from those buildings that you see. That's a different pathway up to the water tower that you're looking at. And the water tower is actually the tall, thin thing in the front that has the beautiful statues around it. They're being renovated too. And the buildings behind that was the pumping station. And the two structures on the far side, those were smokestacks, because originally we used coal to power those big steam pumps. But those are now National Historic Landmarks. So that was the original structure of the water company. And it was placed at that point on the river because in Louisville, most of the population was downriver. So this was a clean source of river. You didn't have people using that. That was a very strategic decision to place us there. Let's go to the next slide, please. So in 1860, we first started pumping water, and we had about 26 miles of pipe. And you see them, that's the pipeline being, everybody familiar with Zorn Avenue? There's a big grassy area right in the middle, and that's where our water lines are. And in 1860, they actually called that Pipeline Alley or Pipeline Lane. Today it's called Zorn Avenue, and a lot of people don't know that Sebastian Zorn was a water company president. Now, on the left side, that's our original reservoir. And that reservoir was part of the waterworks, the pumping station, the water tower, and it's located where Veterans Hospital now stands. Some of you all are familiar with our larger reservoir. We say the newer one. It was built in the 1870s, but the original waterworks was the pumping station, the water tower, and that reservoir. And believe it or not, all they had to do back then to get water out of the river was pump it out, send it up to the reservoir, let the mud and sand and silt settle out, and then it flowed downhill to our customers. A little backtrack, something I forgot to tell you all. When we were dealing with those cholera epidemics in the city of Louisville back in the mid-1800s, Louisville had a nickname back then. We were called the Graveyard of the West. How'd you like to be the mayor of a city and get tagged with a nickname like that? And it was because so many people were ill and dying. I mean, they had it's almost reminiscent of COVID. They had like shacks and structures set up to deal with the bodies. But anyway, that's the original waterworks that you see right there. And Louisville Water was the first water utility in the state of Kentucky. We were one of the first in the United States, and we are the largest water utility in Kentucky. And back then, again, it was 26 miles of pipe, and it was about 500 customers, and they were probably originally the more wealthy citizens of the community. Today, it's over 4,000 miles of pipe, and about 1 million people drink our water every day. We can go to that next slide. So we've outgrown a lot of these facilities, but they're amazing, beautiful community landmarks. Hopefully when you guys tour, you'll see the water tower. I always tell people we did such an amazing job with building these structures. And one of the questions that I get about the pumping station, the white buildings, is, Ms. Crow, why is it so fancy? Well, you know what? I think our chief engineer at the time, not only was he a brilliant scientist and he studied water treatment in Europe and he fell in love with those classically styled buildings, but I think the guy was a marketing genius. He knew nobody wanted to buy what he was selling because they didn't think they needed it. But boy, have people coming down in their horses and buggies just to see those facilities. And they're still just as grand today. And again, we did a great job with building them, not so much naming them. They needed a PR person. The water tower is just called the water tower. And the white building behind it is called pumping station number 1. And if you could see it to the left of that, we have pumping station number 2, and drum roll, what do you think the other one's called? Pumping station number 3. So right next to those white facilities are the actual facilities that we use today. You're getting a little peek inside the pumping station where the museum is. That'll be open again in January. And I don't know if any of you all are familiar with the Crescent Hill Reservoir, but what another beautiful landmark in our community. That has raw river water, just plain old river water is pumped there, and the mud and sand and silt settles out. And that big, beautiful building that looks like a castle, and it was designed to look like the castles along the Rhine River in Germany, used to hold the gates that they used to open and close the reservoir. Now we use so much water that water's continuously pumping in there. But people love to go up there and walk. April through October, and you guys should join us. We have something called Walking Wednesdays, and maybe we could partner with you all and you could have a display. We bring community partners in to talk about the things they do. So jot a note about Walking Wednesdays. We'll start those again in October. And if we can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So back to a little bit of history. Anybody that has anything to do with sanitary engineering knows the name George Warren Fuller and Theodore Skoughton. And they were both at the water company and did groundbreaking research. Fuller did some of the groundbreaking research in coagulation and filtration. And those discoveries were used all over the world. And that's one of the things I think, again, we're proud of, that we are a science-based institution. And we are one of only a handful of water utilities today in the United States that has their own research section. And we are still sharing groundbreaking research with people all over the world. We can go to the next one. So we had our first lab, that's an oldie, in 1909. And when we came on board with coagulation and filtration, typhoid and cholera death rates dropped significantly. And again, it was a big effort to get rid of those corner pumps that were polluted with human sewage. We can go to the next one. Today, we have 2 water quality certified labs, and there is nothing that you guys eat or drink that is more tested than your tap water. And I don't say that to brag, it should be that way because most people don't have a choice in their drinking water. So a lot of you might not know this, but the Environmental Protection Agency is the agency that regulates all water utilities. You have something called the Safe Drinking Water Act. That is your right to go anywhere in the United States and have a safe glass of water. Do we think it tastes as good as our water? Absolutely not. The folks that run our water quality and production always say, you have the government regulations here, then you have industry standards, and then you have Louisville water standards. We do much more than is required by law, and the people here are proud of what they do, and they're proud of the quality of the water that we produce every day. And just a little number to brag, There are 50,000 water utilities in the United States.
Oh,
Only
wow.
18 of them have the very highest ranking EPA can give. That means they're taking care of their infrastructure. They're doing research. Their treatment facilities are top notch. Both of Louisville Water Company's plants are part of that elite 18. All right, we can go to the next one. Excuse me. This one is near and dear to my heart. I'm trying to think how long it's been. In the early 90s, I went to my boss, John Huber. Some of y'all might remember that name. John Huber was part of the Huber Farms, and he always said that he left the farm and they all stayed and got rich. But he was the president of the water company. And I had had some disturbing experiences with people knocking on my door trying to sell me home treatment devices, little things you put on your faucet. They were coming to people's doors and saying, hey, you know what? The quality of the water here is not good, and you need these little devices, and it'll only cost you $500. So I went to John and I said, John, we need to do something more proactive. I said, we know we produce great water, but we're not very good storytellers. We need to start telling our story so people have the information to make choices. So we started the Louisville Pure Tap story back over 25 years ago. We tell people if you want really good bottled water in our city, all you need is the bottle, fill it up out of the faucet. We give away thousands of these reusable bottles every year. And we always say it's a water supply so good, we gave it a name. There's nobody else in the whole world that has named the water coming out of your faucet. So we're really, really proud of that trademark. The other thing is we do a lot of community outreach with this. If you guys are involved in any kind of groups, you see those coolers and cups down there, those are compostable cups. We can, throughout the year, if you need those for an event, you just reach out to Louisville Water. And if we have them, because they go quick, especially in the summer and fall, we'll loan those to you so that you can serve tap water. So you're not clogging up landfills with plastic bottles. We also have these really cool things that look like beer taps. I've disappointed a lot of people serving water when they thought we were giving away free beer, but we can actually tie into a water main. And things like Waterfront Wednesdays, where they'll have 10,000 people down there, we can serve them ice cold water. So we're really proud of that outreach. Let's go to the next one. You know, I told you before, we've got over 4,200 miles of pipe beneath the ground. And there's a lot of communities that can brag that the water coming from their plants is great. But if you're not taking care of what's underneath the ground, you're not going to have the best quality water that you can have. And we have spent, and that number is bigger now, over $300 million to take care of pipe underneath the ground. We replace lots of pipe every year, or we refurbish it. So when you see those folks working in the street, I know it can be a little frustrating, but just remember they're protecting the quality of your water by making sure that our infrastructure is in good shape. Let's go to that next one. We're really proud too that we are very innovative and are always looking for the latest, greatest technology. I've got old film of when, and I say guys because ladies, back then it was gentlemen. Now women do all of the jobs at the water company equally. But when they had a big transmission line and they needed to inspect it or put a new one in service, people would be laying on their backs on little rollers, rolling through, looking for cracks. Now we do a lot with robotics. So again, innovation since 1860 is a big part of what we do. We want to create and be up to date. Next one. A lot of people ask about water quality. Again, we're really proud of the quality of our water. We do much more than is required by law. And you hear a lot about lead, and lead in the environment is mostly an issue with soil and air, not so much water. When water leaves our plant, it is lead free. And we also have no control over the plumbing in your home. So we minimize the risk of lead leaching from your home plumbing by the way we treat the chemistry of the water. We make it so that it doesn't leach from the system. It's not corrosive. And in 2020, we kind of had a landmark. You have a water main, and then you have a service line that connects to the meter. And then our customers have service lines that go from the water meter to the main. Louisville Water has replaced all of our service lines that were lead. Everything we know about is out of our system. But the next thing we're going to offer, because there are new rules with EPA, new lead and copper rules. We're going to start paying for customers to remove their service line. And you'll hear more about that in over the next year as we roll out programs. But again, in general, lead is not an issue in this community because of the way we treat the water. It's non-corrosive. All right, next one. A lot of people forget the value we bring to the community in fire protection. We've got over 24,000 fire hydrants out there, and part of Louisville Water's job is keeping those in service. On any given day, and the fire department sure appreciates this, 99.9% of those hydrants are working and in service. And we provide that free water also to Metro. I didn't tell you all about this. A lot of people don't realize that the water company is a stock-held company. Back in the, when we first came on board, when we were first chartered, nobody buy the stock. Again, they were like, stock in a water company? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The city of Louisville bought some of our stock, and then eventually they bought all of the stock. So every year we pay the city of Louisville a dividend, but that money goes right back into the city of Louisville services and roads and parks. So it's been a great deal for the city, and it's been a good deal for our customers because we continue to be able to provide really high quality water. All right, let's go to the next one. The other thing we're really proud of is how we tell our story. We use a lot of retired school teachers. If any of y'all are retired school teachers and you want a second job, we're in the community almost every single day doing science, social studies, history lessons, really hands-on stuff. The kids are building water filters. They're learning that water wasn't so great a long time ago. And what we hope that we're building are kids that'll be great stewards of the river and great stewards of our water system. They'll understand where their water comes from and how important it is to keep it clean and to keep up on federal regulation. So I think we're creating good stewards. But we also serve water at those community events too. But we do a lot of education, not only with young children, but with college kids and with seniors. We do a lot with seniors too. And we think that's important, that people understand what goes into that water bill you get every month. All right, next. A lot of people don't realize how big we are. Again, we serve 1 million people every day. We also serve retail customers in Bullitt and Oldham County, but we also have a lot of wholesale customers in places like Shelby, Spencer, and Nelson County. And the reason we can do that is because of the Ohio River. It is truly an amazing asset for this entire region. Those numbers are a little bit different, but if you look at your water bill, and remember you've got water and sewer on there, and your sewer is just as important. Another company called the Metropolitan Sewer District handles your wastewater and storm and drainage. But water is still a very inexpensive, affordable commodity for us. We also call it a liquid asset. We have a program called Water Grows Kentucky, where we work with regional partners all over the state to bring jobs in, because nothing brings jobs. That's one of the first things they're going to look at is your power and your water. So Louisville Water is a huge asset for this entire region. And it makes pretty good bourbon too. So yeah, if you're a bourbon sipper, part of the reason it's so good is because of the great water. Let's get the next one.
Can I just ask about the auto manufacturing? That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And again, the reason you can bring some of those big providers in, even if they're not in Louisville or Jefferson County, if they're in some of those surrounding counties, is because they have the ability to get water from Louisville Water. We have a large pumping capacity and the ability to make water available in the region. So that is a huge asset in this community. Anybody have any questions? Again, I don't know all the answers, but I know where to go to get the answers.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is regarding water pipes.
Yes.
I had heard before that Louisville has some pretty ancient water pipes, but I know you just said you've already spent $300 million. What is your goal? What else needs to happen?
You know what's interesting? Some of the oldest pipe in our system is some of the best pipe in our system. Some of the worst pipe in our system was put in during the 1940s during World War II, when all of the metal was going to the war effort. That pipe's all been replaced. But with infrastructure, you don't have an end game. We have a pipe model, and every year we look at so much pipe and we go, okay, this pipe has had this many breaks. We've had water quality complaints or discolored water. And every year we have strategically decide which water mains we're going to replace or we're going to refurbish or reline. But just because it's old doesn't mean it's not good. Some of that old cast iron pipe you can reline and it's great pipe. But again, it's a never ending story here. When we finish, then we start all over again, because the water, your water's only as good as the water that gets to the homeowner. You know, again, you're not coming to the plant with a bucket getting your water. That delivery system is very important to us in maintaining really high quality water.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I would just like to, first of all, address, you know, what you're saying right there. I'm remembering that a couple of years ago, I was in Honduras and I was taken for a tour of one of the main, actually it is the main source of water for the city of Tegucigalpa, which is about, I think 1.4 million, or well, I think it served that many people, and it's a huge dam and reservoir, and then this very very sophisticated, very well done, created in partnership with the country, with Italy and all this and all these engineers, this fantastic water treatment system. And the guy who runs it said, I'm confident, you know, this is leaving absolutely drinkable. Now, nobody, including right up to the president of Honduras, can turn on their tap and drink water.
You know
And
what?
It's the infrastructure.
Those systems are only as good as the people's ability to maintain those systems and understand them. We do a lot with an organization, the American Water Works Association does, Water for People. We do a lot with Water Step. We do stuff with you all. But we know you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
If you go into a rural area where the water's contaminated and you set up some sophisticated system where they can't get parts and nobody knows how to run it, it looks fun and shiny and good for a while. But again, you got to meet people where they are. And that's, you know, comes down to things that, like with Water with Blessings that you do, very, very basic. You can do some pretty basic things to get people higher quality water.
Well, and to clarify, because I've actually got two situations in mind, that one, I'm confident that is very, very well run and maintained with the help of the government of Italy and all that. But it still goes through underground, like you said, you know. And
yeah, you can't have that big chunk of disconnect there where the water quality is great till it gets to this point.
Right.
But then when it's delivered to people, it's not there. I mean, infrastructure maintenance is a huge part of maintaining water quality.
Well, and I've turned on a tap. You can turn on a tap in Tegucigalpa and see chunky stuff come out of the water.
Yeah, it's probably like iron buildup inside of those pipes and
all kinds. Yeah. So no, you can't.
Infrastructure is important.
And then I'm thinking of another smaller one that again was beautifully built. And I think Arnie has seen this one, and Tamara, Arnie. But they simply don't have everything they need, and their staff consists of 2 guys who do 24-hour shifts.
Wow.
And when they have chlorine tablets, they're able to introduce that, or the chlorine, they're able to introduce chlorine when they have that. So it's very, I think we're so sometimes, and I talked about this in our e-news yesterday, that we're out of touch with what a blessing it is to have clean water right out of the tap. And especially here, we live with the best tap water in the country. So.
Yeah, there's a, you all, I'm sure know of it. It's called A Day Without Water. And you just think about, what if you couldn't have your coffee? What if you couldn't flush your toilet? What if your house was burning down and there was no fire, department to hook into a fire hydrant? It is a commodity we take for granted because it's so plentiful here, and honestly, because Louisville Water Company does such a good job of producing and delivering it. But it is that basic building block that if you don't have it, we do a program called Water Changes Everything. And we talk to kids about places like Honduras and Costa Rica. And they're like, well, just build, just build a plant like at the water company, or can't they just go buy it at Target? And I'm like, no, they don't have Targets, and they don't have, or water, walking to a well being hazardous to your health because wild animals are about. I mean, it is, again, it's a wonderful luxury that we all have in this country that not everybody has. And it's almost hard to imagine that they don't have it.
Yeah. And, I'll just emphasize again from what I wrote in yesterday. It's a short 2-hour plane ride from Miami to Haiti, which is right now in a major cholera outbreak.
Yeah, isn't that just almost unfathomable when you hear of cholera outbreaks?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I talk about cholera when I'm talking about, the 1830s, 40s, 50s. It's crazy.
Yeah. And as you said, it's impossible to set up this kind of system to replicate that in rural communities in a country that is unstable. One thing I always talk about is it requires a stable democracy, a truly stable democracy, to ensure the stability of something like the Louisville Water Company.
There are a lot of politics involved with water all over the world, and it's unfortunately also one of those things you can use to take systems out and to do great harm. You have a water system and you do something to it, and
yeah,
then you have, I think of what's going on all over the world right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of the tactics
it's kind of held hostage sometimes. Water is,
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I hope that you guys can tour with us. I think it would be a lot of fun. Judy, do you have a question?
No, Ann was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, as I listen to you, you're hitting on some of our very specific buzzwords as we talk about water with blessings. Versus our program is so simple when we go into these areas that don't have good water, they don't have systems that are pumping water, or even if they do, it's, as Lorraine has said, it's not that good. One is the maintaining is so difficult, whereas what we can offer people, they can maintain themselves. It's a small filter, and if they're taught how to use it, it will last them a lifetime. So that's one of our buzzwords, and to the fact that those issues aren't there. And the other you just mentioned is the politics. You build a big program in a community, and there's no way that politics is not going to get involved. Mm-hmm. And so all this ties in with what we can offer with Water with Blessings. And that is something that is really, really simple, but it works.
And that's what you all have done such an amazing job with, is coming to people where they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which I think is one thing that makes us unique versus many of the other programs. There are a lot of water purification programs all over the world, right, but I think ours is uniquely effective because of the things that you just mentioned.
Well, it's so personal,
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother issue too. Yes.
Yeah. Barbara?
Yes.
Could we have the slide again of your contact information?
Yes.
Let me get back to that.
And it's easy. The best way for me is email, and it's just bcrow@louisvillewater.com. Crow, just like the bird, no E. Don't call that phone number because I forget that I even have a landline. Email's always best. Every once in a while, about once every 6 months, I come in and see that light flash, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's my phone.
Yeah. Well, my last name's more unusual than yours. But I want to contact you later because every fall, my Lions Club feeds lunch to about 200 blind and visually impaired students. And one of our expenses is sometimes bottled water, which I don't like. I
will tell you right now, you have got our water. We will supply your water.
Excellent. Yeah. And I hate to see people coming out of Walmart with baskets full of bottled water, which I know is most of which is not going to get recycled.
And you know what the sad thing about that is too?
Some of it ends up in the ocean.
Well, a lot of bottled water comes from your public utility.
Yeah.
They bottle our water put it in a bottle and crank the price up. So when you
Yeah.
look at source on those bottled waters, a lot of it comes right from municipal water supplies.
Yeah, and contributes to trash.
Yep.
And the smashed bottles go down the sewer and end up in the ocean.
Yep.
So
You're right. We actually used to do those little bottles for, we supplied water for all of the road races. And about 10 years ago, we were like, this is not good. We do not need to do that. And that's when we started doing the compostable cups and the coolers, and we didn't want to be part of the problem.
yeah,
And we put in bottle fill stations in a lot of places too.
That reminds me, because I used to work a lot with immigrants in the past, and so many people who come to this country, they cannot conceive that you could actually drink tap water. Do you do any kind of special outreach among immigrant populations? And
over the last few years, we have really, we're starting to work with like La Casita, Americana, United Ministries Refugees, and we have found that people do not, and honestly, the best way we found so far to reach folks who come from other countries is through their children in school. Because you're absolutely right. People come from countries where they can't drink the water, and they can't even fathom that you could drink the water. So yes, that is a part of our education outreach. Right. We're getting ready to do some customer focus groups, especially in the Hispanic community to start with, to talk to them about, you know, what they know about our water, and do they drink it? If they don't drink it, why don't they drink it? But again, the best way to get through to those populations a lot of time is through their children, because their children are the ones that are picking up English really quickly and translating for them. So yeah, that's one of our strategic drivers, is to make sure that people that move here know how good the water is.
you work Kentucky Refugee Ministers?
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to mention the city. I was in St. Louis a few weeks ago. Patricia and I were there, and the tap water, it may be legally drinkable, but it tasted like drinking a chemical soup.
You know what's funny?
If I moved here from St. Louis, it would not occur to me to drink tap water.
When college kids that don't go to school in Louisville go to their schools, we get so much love on social media. It's like, I miss my Peter tap. We hate the water here. And you're right. The water that you were drinking was perfectly safe. But we take great pride in making sure it tastes good too, because we don't think you should have to buy bottled water or use a filter or a home treatment device.
Yeah. We encourage people to think about buying our filters just for emergencies.
Yep.
You know, but otherwise, you know, people need to be, I'm just a believer in tap water.
Well, I always tell people when they ask about water filters, I always say, you know what? We did the original experiments in chlorination and filtration that wiped out mass diseases like typhoid and cholera years ago. We know all about filtration.
Yeah. This is a great presentation.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all having me. Oh, Judy.
Yeah. I think it was great. And Louisville is clearly a model. What's the greatest challenge for the water company?
I think probably the greatest challenge, even when I started here 35 years ago, you could see things in the water in like parts per million or parts per billion, you know, when you're looking for contaminants. As the science grows, so does what we see grows. And affordability, I think, is another one of the things that we're working on. We have a program where we work with the area ministries to help people pay water bills. And we have recently gone to monthly billing because we know a lot of people get monthly checks, or we're transitioning to that. But I just think affordability and the continuing gains in what we see and, you know, and science. I mean, that's where I feel great about us, because we have people at the national and international level that are part of, you know, they're on that playing field. They're helping shape the regulations. But the other big challenge is making sure that all of that is science-based. You know, you got social media out there and somebody grabs one little thing and it's like the train. Remember the train derailment that they had in, was it East Palestine?
Yeah. East Ohio.
Immediately that if that got to, first of all, we were pretty darn sure immediately that it was never going to get to us because of the dilution factor in the Ohio River and because what the contaminant was and the way it would dissipate. But the biggest challenge for us was not water treatment. We have great confidence that whatever might be in that river, we can remove it. The biggest issue was social media. People
Yeah.
grab a little bit of information
Amen.
and stretch it
Amen.
and stretch it. And it's all of a sudden it's like, what? Why do you think that? Why do you, I don't know. Social media is a big challenge. And that's probably a challenge for any industry
Right.
when you're trying to communicate.
Well, I two things really stand out to me about this this presentation as we close out. And one is, over and over, you said something about science-based and science disconnect.
Yep.
And that, I just want to affirm that. I really appreciate that. And I think that's such great messaging in and of itself. The other one is, I want to go back and congratulate you for being the having the vision of the pure tap concept and the importance of that marketing.
I'll tell you all a funny
so-
story about that. I told you that I actually had one of those home treatment device people come to my house. And of course, I'd never do this now. And if my kids did it, I'd shoot them. But I let the guy come in and he did all his hocus pocus and he turned the water black and he was like, Miss Crow, which model can I sign you up for? The, GL 500? And I looked at him and I shook his hand and I said, thank you very much for the information. I'm the communications director for the Louisville Water Company, and this has really been an education. I appreciate everything that you, and his eyes just got so big. And I think he knew immediately he was not making a sale, but that also gave me information to go back. We're not being fair to our customers. They're getting stories like this from people, and we're not supplying good information. So we're proud of our science, but you got to tell your story. You got to tell people what's going on, whether it's good or bad news,
And you guys have a fantastic website. I'd encourage everybody to look at that website. That's where I saw the news about the birthday celebration that we featured yesterday in our e-news. And we'll connect all this up with everything. And wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And maybe we can see you guys after the first of the year and get you down for a tour.
Absolutely. We'll be there.
All right. You guys have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
for now.